Hello again, fantastic fencer friends. On this video I wanted to talk a little bit about the new Fencer's meta as far as his best weapons in EDF 5, at least from my opinions here so far. Since I did the Wing Diver kind of recently with how strong is she and like what's her new meta, I figured I might as well do that for all the classes actually. I think it'd be kind of fun. First let's talk about the old meta. And also I'd like to say at the beginning here, please write down in the comments your favorite setups as well. I'm just curious what you guys think as well here, but this is just my opinion from the hours I've played and what I think is the best and what I see a lot from other players as well. So let's get started here. In the previous game, like I was saying, the main meta was Blast Hole Spear, Javelin, Catapult, and the reason being was the Blast Hole Spear had a ridiculous range in that game. It had 300 some range, I believe, and the Catapult, of course, was needed so you could dash cancel around really fast. So that weapon allowed you to have good range, as well as it penetrated through crowds, so it was just a really overpowered, all-around good weapon. So it was either that, or if you weren't fast enough with the dash cancel, you would use two hammers, such as the two finest hammers, level 69, or the two of the Vulcan hammers, level 56, or you'd take one of each. So that was the close range fighting for Fencer. And then of course there was the Great Shield and then Blast Hole Spear as well in the first game, which was a very strong combo as well for if you wanted to fight dragons or the king dragons, that is. Or of course Reflector, Jackhammer for bosses as well was very strong in 4.1 in 2025. And then last of all, which I'm not sure how popular it was for most people, but for me, I really liked the Blast Hole Spear / NC Cannon for sniping, because what that game allowed you to do in 4.1 in 2025 was if you dashed in between your NC Cannon shots, it would allow you to shoot your NC Cannon faster, and it would allow you to still be mobile and yet have that long range of the NC Cannon. So I would dash, shoot, dash, shoot, dash, shoot while I was firing at long range. So that was something I always liked for sniping. But the new meta has changed, has quite a bit actually. The main reason it's changed so much is because they got rid of the catapult, the Javelin Catapult, and instead they gave you increased number of dashes and increased number of jumps. So therefore, now you will usually take, for your items, if you're playing on Inferno, you would take level 72, which gives you 6 jumps, and then you would take level 77, which gave you 6 dashes. And then what that would do is it would allow you to take one dash weapon in these two columns, first two columns, and then one jump weapon, which is in this column, and it would allow you to dash jump 6 times in a row. And then once you were waiting for your cooldown for your jumps, you would dash 4 times, and then you would continue your dash jumping again. So that really changed up the meta because you're able to now take multiple weapons for each slot instead of just being stuck to one weapon and a Javelin Catapult. So now I would say the most used setup for most people that I've seen online, including myself, which I definitely agree with this setup, would be either taking a Spine Driver and a Stampede, or a Blast Hole Spear and a Stampede. Of course, based on what you... sorry, let me talk about this first. Either a Spine Driver and a Stampede, or a Sword, which is level 83, and a Stampede, if you're trying to fight for range. Mainly for range setups. So this sword gives you 287 meter range, and that's a over 2,000 damage, and it does cut through crowds. So that's your second charge, or if you need a sniper shot, you can charge it up all the way and do 6,794 damage at a 1,900 meter range. And then of course you would take a Stampede for your second setup. And the reason I think the Stampede is so good, because I kind of was resistant against it at the beginning, because I wasn't sure if I liked that setup the best because it only has 2 shots. But the reason it's so good is because it's high burst damage. You can do close to 30,000 damage with this Stampede, and yes, it has a 10-second reload, but just being able to do a quick burst damage of 30,000 damage is very, very strong. So this is kind of like your I need high burst damage side, so you take the Stampede for that side, and then your other side is your main fighting weapon side, which you either use Sword or Spine Driver for long range. The reason I don't really care for the Spine Driver as much is because I don't like how it doesn't penetrate through crowds, and it has a very small magazine. But it's not a bad weapon, it's just I prefer the Sword now that I've been using the two of them and comparing the two for range setups. So that would be your range setup. And then let's take another meta setup for Fencer in the new game, and that would be 2 sets of missiles. The high altitude missiles in specific, because the reason the missiles are so good now, even though they're level 71, they're kind of low damage. I mean, 1500 damage. But the reason is you can be mobile with these missiles now, and it's very, very strong because of that mobility. The reason you don't take the other missiles usually is because A, the Arm Hound is good if you can afford having a close range, if you want to fight at closer range. But usually missiles you're going to be fighting at far range, so the high altitude give you over 1,000 meter range, so very, very strong for that reason. The Arm Hound does let you dash forward with them, so you can take 1 Arm Hound and 1 FGX, but I usually just tend to take 2 FGX high altitude missiles. Like I said, the Arm Hound the detriment is their short range, and then the other missiles, the detriment is like these Arcane 6-barrel. The problem with these is they don't allow you to dash or allow you to jump with them, so you're kind of immobile when you use them, as well as they shoot straight ahead, so they're easier to hit yourself with them. They take longer to fire off. They're not as safe to fire off, even though they're very strong. So that's the reason I don't think they're as valuable. And then of course there is in the DLC these new missiles that shoot straight up and are like Stampede, very, very strong. But the negative of these is the range, and also you can't dash or jump with these missiles as well. So I would say, I mean, not that I'm saying there isn't a time and place for the other missiles, but I'm saying the majority of the time you're going to take 2 FGX missiles because of just how good they are. And let's briefly show those off really quickly here, this main setup here in a mission really quickly. It won't take too long. Let's just do this mission because we're not going to necessarily fight with them. We're just going to show briefly the new weapon setup here. Okay, so like I was saying, the new Fencer movement setup, which I'm just going to quickly cover because obviously this is the meta, so I want to include this. This is definitely the main meta. So like I said, instead of doing the Javelin Catapult that cancel your dash and redo it, what you do now is just dash jump, and then dash jump, and you can do that 6 times in a row before you need to wait for your cooldown on your jumps. So you can do it multiple times in the air. You don't have to just do it once. And then once you're waiting for your cooldown for your jumps, you just dash 4 times, and then you just continue to dash jump again. And that's your main movement. And since you're so fast with this, you don't really need the 2 hammer setup quite as often. So like I said, the reason I like this setup is because the sword, the second charge charges up very quickly. So you can use, a nice weapon that cuts through enemies with a pretty long range with the sword here. And it's got a very quick reload too. And if you need a longer shot, you can just charge up longer, and it does take a while, and you can do a very long range shot, and it does cut through enemies as well. And then of course if you need burst damage, like if you're fighting a colonist, you need to kill him right away or something, or a colonist, you can just shoot at the ground here and you got 30,000 damage. And it's good for long range too because it has, it's a rocket, so it shoots really far. So very strong setup. I say I see this and use this the most out of all my setups, for sure. And then the benefit of the high altitude missiles is now that you can dash hop around, what you can do is you can switch to your missiles and then set them off. Unfortunately this is kind of bad, but you can set them off and then you can switch out, dash hop away, and then while you're in the air switch back to them, reload a little bit, dash hop again, switch back, reload a little bit, and this allows you to be mobile with your missiles. And so it's very, very strong. And so I would say that this setup right here that I have is very common for me to take. 2 sets of missiles and then either a sword and a stampede or a spine driver and a stampede if I'm fighting at range. So very, very strong setup. And a little tip for when you're firing the missiles is make sure you're dashing straight up in the air when you set these off. Don't be dashing back or dashing forward or anything, because you will hit yourself with the missiles a lot. So it's just simple, like when you're dashing around and you want to fire the missile, switch to them and then just dash once straight up at the top of your jump, let go, and then you can dash away, with the angle again. But that keeps you safe from doing that, from hurting yourself with the missiles. But pretty nice setup, very strong setup, and I definitely use it an awful lot. So let's go back now and talk about more of a close and mid-range setup. I don't necessarily need to show this because it's not too much different, but if I'm fighting a lot of crowds and a lot of near enemies, then I will switch out my sword sometimes for a blast hole spear, because Blastol Spear is still good, but they definitely balanced it to where it's not the go-to weapon for every situation, because the range is now 124.8 meters. So a substantial cut, but I think that's accurate for this kind of weapon, because this weapon is for crowds. It's very strong and it'll take out crowds very fast. So I'm happy with that. It's now a crowd weapon. So if I'm fighting closer range, a lot of crowds of enemies, I'm going to use the Blastol Spear and the Stampede. That way I can cut through the enemies nearby with the Blastol Spear, and then I can hop up over the crowd of enemies and just shoot straight down on the Stampede and kill a bunch of them that way too. So very good crowd control. So that would be my crowd control setup. Let's see. And then as far as for sniping now, there's some different options. Now that he has items that allow you to reduce recoil, which is very nice, you can now take an item to reduce the recoil. And then for your second item, if you still want to stay mobile, you can choose an item that has the dashes and jumps on the same item. It doesn't give you 6 and 6, but it gives you 4 and 3, which is fine. So I'll take one of those, the 4 and 3, 4 dashes, 3 jumps, and then I'll take the 100% recoil reduction. So then I'll switch out one of my. I'll keep the setup for fighting at crowds here. So I'll take Blastol Spear, Stampede. Then when I need to snipe, I'll take either 2 NC cannons, or I'll take 2 heavy cannons with the recoil reduction. And I like the NC cannons quite a bit because I'll show you here, it's a little bit different than it was before. Let's just take this mission, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But the difference with the NC cannons is now you can hold down the trigger and they will fire, and now that you can completely cut off the recoil reduction, or completely cut off the recoil, you can just hold them down like a machine gun, and it makes you very accurate with them and very strong. And they do cut through crowds as well. So as you can see here, if I hold down both triggers, fires very quickly and very straight and pretty strong. So it's a very nice sniper setup. And of course you can also do this with 2 heavy cannons as well, where you have no recoil and you can just fire straight ahead and just do a lot of damage. And then you still have the dash hops, so you can do 3 dash hops right here, and then while you're waiting for it you do 3 dashes, and then you can go back to your dash hops again. You have to be a little more careful because only having the 3 and 4, you have to be more careful to not have any room for error. Like when you're dashing 3 times waiting for your jumps, you kind of want to do them a little slowly. Like you don't want to do them as fast as possible, because you will find that you will not have your jump back up in time to dash hop again. But it's just something. I feel like they made a good balance, because there should be a penalty for taking an item with 2 dashes and 2 hops on it, because it shouldn't be like just as good as the 7 or 6 and 6. So I do feel like it is a little bit more difficult to use, and therefore it's not as strong. So one negative of the 2 snipers is it takes a long time to change back to your weapons. So, but yeah, that's a very nice setup for sniping. Depending on the situation, I'll either take NC cannons or heavy cannons. And then the next setup I want to talk about is underground setup. I really like FENCER now has the ability to increase his walking speed. So I would still take the recoil reduction 100%, or whatever you have, 90%, 80%, depending on the difficulty. And then I will take, for my second item, I will take fast feet. There is 2 good options. There's level 70, and there is level there's DLC level 101, which is 300% walk speed. But if you're playing the the campaign with no DLC, you still have an option, which is 170 right here. So I'll take this level 70 fast feet, so you walk faster and you have no recoil. And then for underground, which I like to take, is 2 Hellflame revolvers. Usually I only do this on Inferno because the Inferno versions have 96 meters, whereas the other versions have 32 meters still, which is too bad. But so I'll take 2 Hellflames because they're very strong, and with no recoil you can fire them both at the same time, and they're ridiculously strong. So let's go ahead and take those really quickly, because my other setup requires something else. So let's go underground here. And I think you'll find that this underground is very, very strong. Of course there's other options underground, but this is definitely a favorite of mine, and very strong, because you can just get into narrow doorways and they have no chance of getting to you. I wish I would have took a weapon to get somewhere faster, but that's fine. But as you can see, if I fire these, they're not going to have any recoil at all. So you can like fire half on one and then just fire both at the same time from then on, and then while one's reloading, the other one will be firing, so you always have constant fire going. And if you're inside of a little doorway, nothing's going to get through with this kind of, you know, weapon. So very strong. And you can also walk faster, which is not bad. Like, this is 170%. Even the level 70 is not bad, but of course the 300% is pretty fun with a DLC item. So that's a very good underground item for sure. Let me go ahead and fight these for a second. But this thing does ridiculous damage underground. Or I mean for campaign missions, non-DLC. It's 10,000-ish a second, and if you shoot enemies more than if you have the fire touching a lot of their body, like large targets, then it's going to even do more damage. It depends on how much fire is touching the target. So let's go back now, and then the last thing I want to cover for the meta is Great Shield. Now that Great Shield was good in the past, but it's actually better now because of the fact that he has shield items, and these shield items can increase his shield health by 800% and increase the radius of how wide it reflects, or not reflects, but shields you in front by 60 degrees. So that increases how wide the shield is and how much health it has. And there's another item, level 78, that makes it so you take 0% damage behind your shield. So that's absolutely ridiculous. And then usually I'll probably take a blast hole spear and a great shield like this, or I'll take a twin spear if I need more mobility, and a great shield as well. So now what I have is, let me look at the shield really quickly. So the shield has 17,500 health, but that's going to be increased by 800%. And then the shield covers you in front by 170 degrees, but you add 60 more to that, so it's 230 degrees coverage in front of you. Now it says it only protects you from 90% of the damage, but however with the other shield item it protects you from 100% damage. So very strong. So now what you can do is when you're fighting a boss or something, you can use your blast hole spear and fight with the blast hole spear and the shield, and then if you need to be mobile, you can switch to your other shield with the twin spears, and then you can be fast with the shield. As you can see, you're pretty fast by just holding down the trigger on this thing, so you can get around, because otherwise you just have one dash because you don't have any dash items. So, but this allows you to be mobile with the shield, and also allows you to fight with the shield with your blast hole spear. So that's another setup I like for bosses, because for king spiders it's very strong. For queen ants even, the great shield's strong. I would say that the reflector is definitely pales in comparison now to the great shield, and because they definitely made an adjustment to the reflector and how it works. It seems like they kind of nerfed it a little bit. It's still not bad. I mean, it's good against queen ants, it's good against queen wasps, but it's not very good against king spiders anymore. It's still usable. I'm not saying it isn't, but I'm saying that the great shield is a lot safer, and it's a lot easier to use against bosses now. And I think it's just more effective even with fighting because of how much damage you can do while you're just blocking the spider webs rather than trying to reflect it and have a chance of getting hit from the side or something. So a very good setup here, and this is definitely something I use a lot for close range and for boss fights. And then of course if you want to be mobile, you know, you just use your twin spears to get away or get some healing items or something. So yeah, that's pretty much everything with the new meta in my opinion. Let's quickly overview here at the end. So if I want to fight long range, I'll take a spine driver or a sword and a stampede. If I want to fight mid-range for crowds, I will take a blast hole spear and a stampede. If I want to fight crowds at long range, I will take 2 sets of high altitude missiles, so that I can jump in the air, set them off, and then dash hop away. If I want to snipe, I will take 2 NC cannons or 2 heavy cannons with the recoil reduction, and then the item that gives you 4 dashes and 3 jumps so you can get away still. If I want to fight underground and be like a person that just crowd control underground, I'll take fast feet, 170% walk speed, and then recoil reduction, and then I'll take the Hellflame revolvers, 2 of them. And then if I want to fight bosses, I'll take the Blastol Spear and the Great Shield. Usually with the shield items, 800% shield health and 100% reduction from taking damage behind the shield. However, you don't need to take the level 78 reduction damage behind the shield, because the shield does shield you from 90% of the damage, but this is just for if you really want to be safe, if you have lower health. You could always switch out the level 78 item for a dash hop item so that you could still be mobile on your second setup. So there's still other options with it, but just Great Shield alone is very, very strong. Or you could choose the opposite, where you could get rid of the 800% and just take the 78% or 78, level 78, to where you take no damage and just use your shield health. But I think I'd prefer the other way around, the more shield health and take more damage behind the shield, but that's just me. So anyway, that's my thoughts on the Fencer class this time. He's very fun, very, there's a lot more options than what I just mentioned, but I would say that is the meta from what I've seen and what I've experienced. So like I said, give me your thoughts in the comments, what you like to do, what you like to use, and I'll plan on covering the other classes as well. So once again, thanks a lot for watching, and remember, EDF doesn't leave a man behind, ever. And also, if you'd like to support the channel, please consider liking and subscribing, as it does make a big difference for the channel. Thank you.